Welcome to Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions on Wolf Spirit Radio, Ever Beyond Radio, and Studio 9 Jam on YouTube. With your host, Jessica Ariel Morocco, featuring JP as the voice of Andronicus. Please visit www.readingsbyrael.com, that's A-R-A-E-L.
From the future, by way of the past. I'm on my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a hole in history.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions. I don't know if it's coming in clearly or not. It sounded like we had some static or some other kind of... How does that sound over there, JP?
Well, it's obviously it's sounding 100% here. Maybe I should just reset your call.
No, it's okay. The music came through a little staticky, but that's okay.
Really? Okay.
So yeah.
It shouldn't be that bad. Anyway, I can bring the volume down a little bit. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, is my mic overdriving down on your end?
No, it sounds good. Okay. Everything sounds good, and I just want to say hello to everyone today.
Hello. Well, hello. I mean, it's been quite a 24-hour period, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. So, I just feel like there's a lot has happened. Well, a lot has been said, and we're moving into what feels like a new year. I want to say a new experience, and we're just going to open up to our new truths. And, I mean, there's so many positive things to be focused on. There's so many things, and I think it's another year where we could just start planning and start embracing our ideas of whether it's the new monetary system, whether it is a new way of living. Maybe people are establishing new relationships. There's so many different things that are happening. And so now is our time to make our choices, make our decisions about what we want to do with our lives. And there's no limit. You know, especially if a lot of the energies are exiting the planet, we have free reign. We have our sovereignty to embrace and to start, instead of being in a protective mode, we can be in a creative mode. So, yesterday something really positive happened on a personal level. We're going to be putting together a group for the Andronicus transmissions on Facebook. And Cheryl Baines, Ches, she calls herself Ches, her nickname, and she is going to be organizing the group. So I'm going to be putting in the link at some point.
I just put it there. It's already
okay, wonderful.
I put the picture anyway. The banner, this lovely ice blue planetary landscape with the UFO in the middle, and there our little Andronicus logo there.
Yeah, you see the Andronicus logo on there?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let me see, and I'm going to send that over to you in a little bit, just in case I have to update that one to the one that she gave me a few copies of it. Anyhow, so things are going well, and I do have some transmissions. We also have an old friend of mine, Ricky Samartana, and he is someone from the Wampanoag tribe. We're gonna have a little bit of a discussion in the second hour. We're gonna talk about what his feelings are. Obviously, he's not in Standing Rock, but like I said, I've known him for many years, and he's got a wonderful heart, and he has the spirit of the people in mind, and you'll feel his essence. And so we'll have a little bit of a discussion later. So, how are things with you, JP? I know it was a late night last night, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, not only has it been a late night, but my son has come to stay, and it's, I just want to hang around with him, so I have to kind of turn my day a little bit around. And anyway, so I think I caught up this morning. Whatever. I think, my back's not too bad. It's very stiff in the mornings, and it gets better during the day as I use it. So it's not bothering me at the moment because I'm sitting still, and that's all right. As long as I can stand still and sit still, that's fine. Just don't bend down too fast. That's all, which is all right.
Well, I love that picture of you with you and your son. It's you can see the resemblance. It's really nice. Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful picture.
We vibrate similar. We've got a similar vibe. So. So there's me in my Montauk hat and my green scarf from Vingage 1944, my red jumper from Sean. It's all my gifts. It's really nice. Very happy.
Well, the Montauk hat came from me. I went
right.
there particularly and picked it up, and should get you some more of that Montauk gear.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, and so Joseph has a hat from Sean, which is it's an original NASA hat, NASA baseball cap. So
that's nice.
He's very, very happy with that. So there we go. Anyhow,
well, that's awesome.
So where should we go from here today?
Well, I had a very, very interesting encounter with Andronicus, and then you're going to see that in the transmissions today. And also, I had a really strange experience I can tell you about regarding Donald Trump.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
You had a strange experience with the ghost of Donald Trump? No?
The ghost of Donald Trump. Well, it was really odd. I was meditating, and you know how things just show up. And,
as you do.
And I wasn't looking for Donald Trump, but he just sort of came in my presence. At I went into his field. Some people told me, I think people are coming to me, and actually there's an aspect of me that's going to them. And I could see him, and I was just looking, and I'm saying, well, this is really strange. Why am I looking at Donald Trump? And, minding my own business and just relaxing and meditating. And then all of a sudden, I just started thinking about the famous was a tennis player. What was his name? Bobby. You know what? I can't even think of his name right now. That's just crazy.
My mind is locked on Bobby Fischer, who's a chess player. So that's I'm no bloody use in these memory exercises.
There's Billie Jean King. And I have to look it up real quick. Bobby.
Somebody will get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's Billie Jean King.
Billie Jean King.
Yeah.
There was one with a V as well. A tennis player whose name began with V. Oh God, can't remember. Anyway, meanwhile, yes, exactly, Bobby Fischer.
I know. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm looking at now. His name is not Bobby. It's not Bobby Fischer, but I'll get his name. Billy. Bobby. It's like right there. Anyhow, he is. So he was known for, being a tennis player and had a strong, he ended up getting into the battle of the sexes with Billie Jean King. She was a female tennis player. And he challenged her and he said he could beat her. And, the whole thing became, it was kind of something that happened in the 70s. And so I'm looking at him saying, oh my gosh, why am I seeing him now next to Donald Trump? And then I started looking at it and saying, well, this is really weird. And then I had to look up and see whether or not he had passed or not, and I found out he did pass, so that was his spirit. And the whole thing of the battle of the sexes, I thought was really strange, and so I start looking up him, and I looked up Billie Jean King, and she actually wrote an article or was quoted by someone because she's still alive and he's not. And so she said, you know, my encounter with Bobby was similar to the way Donald Trump is with Hillary. And so it was like the battle of the sexes between the two of them, and that spirit was actually right there next to Donald Trump. And I thought that was rich. It was just very strange to me. It was like that whole battle of the sexes thing had emerged because the spirit was there present. And Billie Jean King says, Hillary has my energy. And I thought it was just a very, very strange moment, one of those strange moments in my life.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you remember a few months ago? I made a post that kind of virtually said that, you know, that the whole Hillary Trump thing is like, there is something about, you know, it's like you're voting for somebody's mother or somebody's father. And
yeah, it's
the
Bobby
mother's
Riggs.
Bobby Riggs. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Craig.
I got it. That's a good thing I wasn't in jeopardy right now.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So that's great, that you know, what's the meaning, do you feel? Or is it just, why do these people come to you? Is that something you ask yourself ever?
Well, I think that Bobby Riggs needed to go to another place instead of going, he hasn't let go of the issue of the battle of the sexes. He needed to let it go. You know, some people take that to the grave. You ever hear that statement? Well, he took it to the grave for sure.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, we need to let things go. Remember that we're all in this experience together, and there's no reason to be contending with one another. But what I found was interesting is that she actually saw it. She could see his energy around Donald Trump in that quote.
Right.
And if you look it up, it's available. I haven't put it in the chat, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So yeah, Vanessa knows what I'm talking about, and yeah. I think if you go back to the 70s, some of the people that go back to the 70s will know what I'm talking about. It was a big deal because I think Billie Jean King, I think she actually beat him in the tennis match in the end. To me, I didn't find it as a success or victory. I just found it as more of a fracturing and a separation.
Yeah.
Of who we are, you know, because male or female, you know, even in any type of competition, it can be very cutthroat and who's going to win and who's going to lose type of scenario. Yeah. And,
I mean,
in this case.
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to jump in, but it's the thing about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. These guys that we were talking about, these are not examples of the divine either. You know, Hillary did everything that the worst kind of female does. You know, she plays people against each other. She's mean. She's mean. She's really mean. She's very mean. And she's murderous. And she's just like all of the worst kind of jealousies and the nasty things. And then, Trump, on the other hand, is everything like, you know, he's sexist and racist and bigoted and that and separative and all this stuff. So neither of them are what we're looking for, to be honest. But it's just that Hillary was ultimately more dislikable and potentially considerably more warlike. I mean, one of the things that Simon Park said is that this election has basically prevented us from having a third world war. So
it was a shock.
Yeah.
It was a shock factor. It was a distraction. And you know, it's something that I guess maybe was helpful in a way. I mean, we stood there, and I think it wasn't just, you know, a lot of us are already awakened to what's going on, but the general public, I think, was for the first time they were saying, wow, what's going on here? We've never seen an election like this before. But what they didn't realize is that it's always been that way. I think the veils were removed. And so they could see clearly through, intent and agendas and also, untruths. And so all this stuff sort of just was exposed. And well, some people have very strong opinions on different levels of what actually happened there. But I do agree with you in saying that this had to come up. It needed to come up for people to stop and awaken, and awakened more people that halted another problem. So according to, I don't even know if it's disinformation or whatever it was, but there's a scenario out there. It's on YouTube somewhere that's stating that they were planning an invasion on Russia in September. Now this was that big September date. Hey, look out, watch out, that's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen, and possibly it was going to happen. And it wasn't that people were falsely predicting, it had nothing to do with that, but the fact that maybe we changed that reality. Maybe it was something that
I think we're doing that a lot. I think we're moving through the fourth dimension in the way that we've said it's going to happen, that we're able to change reality. And the more of these, the main thing about the situation on Earth is that there's enormous equipments and machineries that generate all kinds of jamming frequencies that they call the frequency fence or the frequency barrier that stops us from moving through the astral plane easily. And it's loaded with fear, which makes it fearful for people to go through it. It's horrible. But we're pushing through it. And we're right in the middle of it right now. So we're seeing all these demons appearing. But like you say, they've always been there. They're just appearing.
It's just that we can see through the veil of deception.
Yes.
And it's not that those people alone were creating the deception, but that was that control system, that overlay, that false reality on our planet, that was trying to create, a slave system where we're all obeying, we're all listening, and we're nodding our heads and we're accepting whatever is put in front of us. We're not challenging it. I'm not saying we go out and picket everything or whatever, but to be aware. And the problem was people weren't even at the first part of this. They weren't at the first part of actually seeing through it. And so once you see through it, then you could step back and say, all right, well, this is a game. This is a part or a role that they're playing. They actually do want to become world leaders. They want to run a nation. But what is their intention? Why they want to run a nation? Is this something that we consent to? Is this as a collective group? Is this what we're voting for? Or not even voting? I mean, all of these different things have to become more of a part of our awareness. If we choose to not look at it, we'll get more of it. If we choose to open our eyes, we'll have less of it. And that there'll be more accountability. Remember, we brought in my friend Mr. Elbinger from Mount Shasta, who said politics should be with consciousness. And so that goes for everything. Business should be with consciousness. Our neighborhoods should have consciousness. Our communities should have consciousness. Our educational system should have consciousness. All of it. Everyone's responsible. You are responsible for your actions. And especially if you are over those who are innocent, whether it's children, and we're over anyone else in a political arena. Very, very important that we're responsible. I feel a sense of responsibility. I will never intentionally provide information that is not truthful or accurate. And even when I channel the information, you notice I will question something if I don't fully understand. And I've also had people ask me questions, and I think it's getting to that point where we have done over 70 transmissions. This 2-hour shows regarding the Andronicus and the array of other characters that have come along for the ride. I won't say that lightly because Rhodan's very serious, but I think that, we do have fun, and it's meant to have fun, meant to be fun. But I do, when I'm reading through and I'm making sure that this information is coming from a source that has good intentions, but also it's coming from a perspective. And so just sorting through that information as well. So I do take on a sense of responsibility. JP, I know you feel the same way. I know that you, as long as I've known you, you've been in integrity and with good intentions to provide very good information. And of course we have those in the chat room that are making sure that we stay on our toes, which is a good thing. I like that. I like it that they provide information as well, and they challenge us at times.
You know, we're coming to a point where all of the old, you know, the powers that be really have collapsed now, and so you know, people might be waiting for that big letter from the tax man. It might never come. So consider when you're paying bills, which ones are really, really important, and which ones are, that might be an institution that's not going to be around for any while longer. It might be worthwhile thinking about that, because you might, save yourself a lot of energy and be able to invest that energy, your money, into something, see, your thing agrees, into something that is really worthwhile. See? And silver is supposed to be really good. This is what we talked about on Maxie's show last night, with Kent Dunn from, where is Kent Dunn from? He's an insider.
Kent Dunn, I think it's from Georgia.
From Georgia.
He's an insider.
Georgia. He was a real country actor.
He's a southern guy. Yeah, sure.
Had a hat.
Yeah, that's the real thing. I lived in Oklahoma for a little while, and it's the real thing. So yeah, so he's very interesting. He has usually been with, is it Paul Larrabee? Is that his
Gary
name?
Larrabee.
Gary
Larrabee. All you see is
very sweet.
Gary's face on the screen, and you hear him over the telephone. And we actually, it was marvelous, and he seemed like he knew who we were. That was rather disconcerting. Well, of course, if somebody's a CIA insider, they certainly know who we were. They probably think, oh, it's those pesky Wall Spirit people again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was very, very interesting information and interaction, and it was a good little vibe going last night, and that's why everybody's tired. It was a bit of a party.
It was a bit of a party. We want to make sure that it's. People aren't supposed to just get up and walk away from their job or anything severe. Just let all things start to change and just be prepared for certain things, manifesting and making those changes. It's like anything, people tell you something and then sometimes people go to extreme lengths. We want to make sure that everything has a balance. And, so yeah, I'm here, there's a lot of little comments here and there in the chat right now. I did find that article, by the way, and I placed it in the chat. And, it was, from, Wimbledon, and, this was Sports on Earth. Let's see. Election year racket, Ask King. So Billie Jean King talking about, she was, asked what she thought about her friend Hillary Clinton going up against Donald Trump in the fall. And, she said, he's Bobby Riggs, Billie Jean said, and Hillary is me. She was referring, of course, to the most famous tennis match ever played in her life, even though she once won a total 20 titles in singles and doubles, in mixed doubles at Wimbledon. It was played in 1973 on the Astrodome in Houston, and her against a male champion out of the 30s and 40s, a 55-year-old aging hustler named Bobby Riggs. It was called the Battle of the Sexes, and Howard Cosell called it on television, and 90 million people watched it that night. So, Howard Cosell is also known for Muhammad Ali's fights, Muhammad Ali's very dramatic portrayals in boxing. So, those were the days when you had only like 3 networks and everyone was paying attention. So I figure most people would understand this. 90 million people watched it that night. So 90 million people were exposed to the battle of the sexes. It's a lot of people. And that definitely could influence a generation or two, couldn't it? Competition between male and female.
Symbols. All symbols. And these are symbols of divide and rule. Remember that these are presented to us. These battles. You know, the 2016 battle. You know, most people voted, I think, if they would had a choice for a cometary collision to happen, rather than either of them being elected. But anyway, shall we move on to our transmissiones?
Yes, we're going to start with Andronicus.
We are indeed. So let me just
So the beginning part is what I read.
Here we go.
I had a vision that I was observing Andronicus, standing to my right side. He was emotionally removed and unaware of who I was. His eyes were distant, as if he was in a trance. I asked him if he remembered me. Then I realized he didn't know me yet. It was almost as if I had met him before everything happened. Before he was imprisoned by the Vinkala or the reptilians, as you know it. Before I ever knew I was alive, and he existed so long before me. That's how far back I saw him. But also I could see something. A slight awareness of my presence. And then suddenly he looked, but still unaffected by me, and a bit more aware of me. And then he began to make eye contact.
Who are you?
Do you remember me?
Vaguely. I've seen you in my mind many times before. Now you're standing before me.
I observed as the energy flowed around him like an atomic wave of insights. Then I observed further and realized he was looking deep into the future, all the way to our present time, where he found me observing him. You're creating this reality, aren't you? It's as if our reality is all in your head, playing out different scenarios. Then I became a bit nervous. Tell me, Andronicus, what is our outcome? Do we survive? Do we go to war? Do we struggle by oppression? Do we thrive and take back our sovereignty? Do we heal the planet? Can we stop this playing out until the endless stream of drama that never comes to any meaningful conclusions?
I have you all in my mind, thinking, pondering, seeing your best interests. Does anyone care about the many hours I hold them in my thoughts to safely carry them into another, more benevolent reality?
They probably don't know or understand or even comprehend how many beings, such as yourself, hold the fragile balance in check by your assistance through thought in multi-streams of reality, playing through your mind. It is a very odd and intimidating concept. You appear as a god in the process of creating realities and timelines. Can you explain this to me?
Some of us take on the plight of civilizations to ensure that they will grow and flourish. In the event they self-implode, we create a roadblock, an alternative road for them to walk down. Much of it is a blindness walking down a dark road without seeing what is ahead. You wonder why many civilizations die. Many do not survive beyond a certain point. That is when their overseer left. I am the overseer of your reality, whether you like it or not. The others, who have the capacity to assist you, and some, who even live amongst you, did not take on the task to carry you through. I chose to do that. They jump in, take the reins, and lead humanity down dangerous roads of destruction, extreme changes, alterations to accommodate their whims. Then they jump ship to leave humanity standing to pick up the pieces, to try and to put together a deeply fragmented reality. Some not only take their happiness, but their souls. I've taken interest in this civilization you are in. It has outlasted many and grown to such abilities far beyond their expectations. Still, something is missing. They have the will to survive and thrive. They have the ability to traverse space, to go into other dimensions and even timelines. They have the ability to become creators and build great structures, harness the energy to do mighty things, yet still something is gravely missing.
I think I'm lost in this.
Page 2.
Hold on a second, page. I completely, my computer just went crazy. And
oh, did it? Right. So it's about
okay.
halfway down page 2.
So is it love? Is it compassion? Is it hope? Is it happiness and inner peace? Tell me, what is missing from our society that is so profound to you?
It is that evil wins, and the goodness is gone.
Can you explain it further?
The power goes to a man who has no history of greatness. He is simple-minded and never conquered anything. His essence is human, nothing more. But he opens his thought to power regardless of who he steps on in the process. The next lifetime, he makes a pact to commit his soul to darkness, but has great ways of hiding it with a false veil of light. He is trained by governments, charged and infused with abilities and knowledge, and takes on missions of valor. Then he steps out of that body and enters another, where he is groomed in military but trained as a politician. Then he learns all the ways of thinking, propaganda, and ways to control large masses of people.
Hasn't this been done already? There have been many antichrists. There's Hitler, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, and others. When a ruler comes in and takes what doesn't belong to them, they become an evil leader to the victims. When a government oppresses the masses, they become dictators. We have seen our share of many who have had taken on this role. Many come from human origins, and all of them were not able to handle power. There have been only a few who could be benevolent rulers. The rest require checks and balances to maintain a humane way of overseeing and not ruling a group. So tell me, when will this end? Who is this man and where is he? And also, how is he able to jump into another body?
I can't tell you who he is at this time. He sees me more clearly these days. I see him. The reason why he's able to jump outside of his body and enter another is because the darkness embraces him so. They give him gifts and abilities that surpassed his knowledge and helped him to take what he naturally shouldn't be able to take. In your attempt to remove the darker rulers, the corrupt systems, he has walked beside you and agreed with your efforts. You could hardly see who he was unless your eyes are pure and want to know the truth. At that point, each and every one of you will separate from him. What he doesn't realize is that I am in control. He thinks he is. What he doesn't know that today I have given a gift to humanity, a gift of sight to see him and make their decision. He has no place to take anyone. After he is finished deceiving others, he will not be able to help anyone escape the planet to enter another reality. The doors will be locked. I will log them. All who choose the goodness of light and love will not be tricked or harmed. I will have the last say. Until this is past, you will not be able to pursue your fullness of happiness. When he is disempowered, the floodgates will open and all will be free. I will then turn back the timelines of self-guidance and allow natural mishaps to occur. For learning purposes.
I don't know how to take all of this. I don't know whether or not to share this information.
If you don't, it will further prolong the process. I will not allow the truth to be revealed until others know what I have to share with them.
For that reason alone, Andronicus, I will share this information for you. Then I saw Andronicus stand taller. His awareness was less focused on our future, and he let go. The task was completed. The quantum space around him diminished, and he appeared common once again. I looked, and he smiled at me with a slight glimmer in his eye. His eyes then began to well up with tears. This was the end of the trial. He could see the safety of humanity and was then set free. His expression of ease told me that everything would be okay. And then he moved away from me, turned forward, and disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was all just a dream?
It was,
no.
really...
It was a scenario construct that were made in, what? Tell me. What just happened, Jessica?
All right. Honestly, it happened when I was meditating, as usual, and I could see him clearly, but as I was watching him, I was observing him watching us and all the timelines just playing out in his mind. You know, the first time I met him, he was calculating. It was all numbers, and I could see numbers floating around his head. And on this occasion, it was all timelines. And then I realized that he was linked to me, and then he was following all of these timelines. And it wasn't just to me, but to our time period right now. And what he did was he took our timeline and then played out all the different scenarios. And I watched how he did that. And then I realized that he didn't know me. So at that point, I was looking at him, he was looking at me. It was actually possibly our first encounter of meeting each other prior to the time where I met him in the very beginning of the early transmissions, where he was enslaved, right? And then there were calculations because he was looking to get free. In this scenario, he was not looking to get free, but almost took on a fatherly role of overseeing us, seeing the civilization, playing through it, kind of being a part of it, stepping in, stepping out, probably wherever he thought he would do. And then he followed it all the way up to us and would not let it go until he got to the point where he saw that we were freed. But it looks like the last incident that he has is this one male. I think it's a male. And he's human, but somehow he gets elevated to a higher level because he makes some kind of pact or agreement. And so he was keeping an eye on him, and once he saw what the correct solution was, and then he was able to bypass it. Everyone's okay. He knew that humanity was then safe, and then he was able to release, and then he looked at me like it's done. It was very strange, but it was very reminiscent of, I think, there's a movie that sort of reminded me a little bit of this, sort of. It was the Dr. Parnassus. I think it was Heath Ledger movie. But still, I mean,
The Mysterium of Dr.
different.
Parnassus. Wow,
Yes.
I saw that 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, but it was, I think that the part that I saw as a parallel was that this man's, everyone was in his reality, in his vision. Well, I don't think this was exclusively his reality. I think he has other realities that are separate from us, that humanity has never been involved with. But the way I was trying to figure it out, and I got him to explain that there are overseers. So he took on the role of being an overseer, which extended the life of our civilization, because there were some very powerful civilizations that did not continue. I'll give you an example of Lemuria, Atlantis. And of course many of our earlier civilizations, pre-deluge, all different scenarios of civilizations that, were cut short. Even Pompeii is another one. There was a volcano and they kind of were trapped in time you could see their bodies are still there, surrounded by the ash. So, what he's saying is that the reason why this happens is because there was an overseer, and the overseer just decided to leave. They decided to abandon, watching over the civilization, or thought the civilization maybe they couldn't see to the end, or they saw that there was no growth or progress. If there was a benevolent overseer. If there was a selfish overseer, then they would allow the civilization to keep going to satisfy whatever their whims were, and then, there would be some kind of catastrophic thing happen, or they would abandon ship, essentially, of that reality, and then things are in a bit of disarray. Now, I remember this. I've had this conversation when I was much younger, and I didn't know what this was all about, but I remember having this conversation before. So,
with Andronicus.
I didn't know it was Andronicus. It probably was. He probably came to me when I was younger and was explaining to me that he was as an overseer. I'm sure there are others. I'm positive there are others. He's one of them. But he was trying to sort through. He wasn't happy until humanity found their way through everything. And so he just kept going in that process.
Okay. So, shall we move towards the next transmission? Oh, actually, talking, alright, so here's the thing. It reminded me of a transmission from my people. If you don't mind, it's just a little paragraph.
No, please do. Yeah, read it through.
So this when did I speak? This is at the end of November. And it was just this very, very strangely worded sentence. So I'll just say this. Our transitory makeup here on the planet is being wiped away with a fresh breeze that will conjoin the parallel dimensions so that the new reality will form from the combination and blending of the membranes. This coalescence will be the merging of both the organic timeline and the archonic Nazi timeline. Every event will deconstruct the Nazi timeline more. So basically we're absorbing our dark nature on a kind of global basis. It's like, we were talking, we're always talking, people talk about their shadow self. And the whole problem with your shadow self is it's the shadow self because it's denied. And so the last thing you want to do is deny it. So we don't want to deny the Nazis. We don't want to, annihilate them all, before we see them. We need to see them because we need to understand that the nature of, the worst things about humans is what the Nazis do. They're very, they have, like you're saying, no heart, no compassion. And they don't see. That's why I say Nazis, you see. And we need to be able to see. This is the difference between organic humanity and Nazi, is that organic humanity can see through the heart, through the eye of the heart. I think that's what Max talks about when he talks about activating your fourth eye. You've got the third eye in the head. Maybe there's a fourth eye in your heart. So anyway, but the interesting thing is each event will deconstruct the Nazi timeline more. So what we'll see is that we see through each event that we go through, more about what's really going on. And, you know, like we were saying before, we have so much that is going on like it always has. We're just seeing it more. So.
Yeah, and I feel like there is a convergence of the timelines, but what was interesting is you used the word membrane. And,
yes, and coalescence.
Yeah. Yeah, when did you write that?
This is from, the 27th of the 11th. Last year, so a couple of months ago.
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. November.
So maybe Andronicus has been speaking to you as well.
Oh, this is from my lady Liella. You know, this is like.
Oh, Liella, yeah.
So
it's the same thing. I mean, they're trying to let us know and
they're
understand.
a collective consciousness, you know. So they all have
Sure.
they'll have the same attitude, and when you get onto the frequency, then you can speak the same, and it just makes sense. Some of the things they say, some of the words they use are just like, I would never use these kind of words.
I know.
Yeah, it's like, this can't be me. What are they talking about? You know, why are they being
That's not
so
the way I talk.
yeah, exactly. Do you remember like when you first met Andronicus and he was coming out with all these, you know, paradigms and dimensionalities and all these really hyper long words, you know? And it was like, what the heck is he going on about? And now if we look back, if we listen back, I reckon I actually haven't done it. I've not listened to any of the early, Andronicus shows, but it'd be lovely to listen to it. Now we know what they're actually talking about. Be interesting. Anyway, listeners have the luxury of being able to do that. I don't have the time to listen to the whole shows back. Anyhow,
I know. Well, yeah. Sometimes there's a lot of gems there,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm wondering. I wonder if we should go into a music break.
all right.
And just to kind of collect our thoughts, because there was something really similar to what you said, and I do believe that the timelines are. I don't know where they were going. I knew that they're combining and coming back together, like you said, or realigning, or it's sort of like, you know, when you have blurry vision and you can see. Like, it breaks up.
When
and
you see
separates,
double, yeah.
Like
When you see
one,
double, yeah.
double or whatever. Yeah. And then when your vision becomes clear again, those lines become one. And essentially that's what I was seeing, is they were looking at all the multiple paths and then this path made sense. But I think a part of what you touched on was embracing our shadow self, or embracing the other aspect, because I think we keep on creating a separation. This is not me. I'm going to make believe that doesn't exist. And, you know, embracing that the darker side of who we are and recognize and embracing the darker side of humanity too. They're just variations, but in essence we're all one. So we should just create some kind of balance there.
Yeah. So, I mean, here, like to expand on those thoughts, is that imagine we've got our brains, our conscious brains, which take up a small part of physical reality, yet dominate this very large, much larger thing, the rest of the human body. It's like a truck driver is an enormous truck and a tiny little driver, and he gets in and he's able to control the whole thing. So our bodies have their own consciousness. Our cells all have their own consciousness. And when that tiny part of them, the brain, tells them what to do that is against their happiness, they make it felt, you know, and this is what causes disease. And the analogy here is that this is the same thing that goes on within the rest of humanity. A very small group, dominate the rest of the larger group. So, it's very much a kind of occupy your body kind of thing, is becoming aware that your body has a say in your life, as well as, you know, what your mind or your personality demands of your body. Yeah, I want to be a footballer. Yes, but you're fat. Yeah, but I want to be a footballer. Oh, that's useless. Anyway, get the idea.
Yeah. So, well, why don't we hold on to that and maybe go into break, and we'll come back and hear. We don't have a lot of guests today, so we have a little time. Let's just, all of us are a little bit tired from last night. Let's take in some music. JP, I trust your selection. And we'll be back to hear from Meetis and Rhodan.
You want it darker.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah. So,
everyone, yeah.
So the lyric that nobody may know is Hineni Hineni, which means I am here. Here I am. It's basically bring it on. Here I am. Bring it on. So this is, you want it darker? Okay, we'll deal with it. We'll take it on. Whatever we have to go through. Just a stunning track. I love it. And the bass line, I'm just so addicted to that sound. I don't know about it.
Well, it reminds me of that song, I know that you don't like this one, but to me it seems similar, is The Sound of Silence by Damaged.
I don't know it, so, maybe I don't. Oh, anyway. We'll have a listen
play
later.
That.
Okay. So.
All right.
Shall we, go back to the transmissions?
Yes. Yeah, I think, Sulu was dead for 10 years. He's back.
I don't know. I saw, did he die after Heroes? I thought,
Oh, no.
I remember him getting married
I'm
a few
not
years
trusting my sources there, Paul. I don't know.
It's Paul. That's like, they have a completely different, in the north of England, they have a completely different reality bubble, and they may have a completely different experience, and they may even be living in a completely parallel alternative reality to the ones we appear to be living in as well. Who knows?
That's why I have to be able to visit over there, because England's in another parallel.
That's right.
Is it possible?
Yeah. Fascinating. Because I always thought that Leonard Cohen and Leonard Nimoy looked exactly the same.
Oh.
Nobody's ever seen that, maybe they're, cause
put a little makeup on, you never know.
Yeah. You could probably easily, put Leonard Cohen in a Vulcan suit,
Yeah.
Or,
Vulcan suit.
Yeah.
I would wear a Vulcan suit.
Oh, well,
would
no,
you?
You're a cosplayer, aren't you? You like to dress up. I don't know. There aren't many fat Vulcans, I need to be something more of a, They have a couple of rotund characters, they have special costumes made for them, it's like.
Well, usually they have a robe incorporated or something. They never have really this slim, form-fitting outfit that the others wear.
No. It's very flattering. Everything about Star Trek uniforms and everything, they were always very flattering to whoever's wearing. Particularly okay, so we're not talking about 7 of 9, and maybe we should go back into to Rhodan. Your logic is flawed. Anyway, meanwhile, let's hit the button that says Rhodan's just about to arrive. I've seen a lot of change going on. Things have been moving ever so slightly. What's happening? Do you see what I'm looking at?
Yes. Andronicus was focused on our reality. It appeared that everything, all of our existence, was in his head.
There are a few who can do that. But that is not what I'm talking about. This is a process of being an observer. The ancient ones know how to do it. The alignments of the planets, they're off.
I saw the planets strangely aligned when I was observing Andronicus. They were hanging from strings like a puppet.
I'll take a look at that. He hasn't been well, has he? Oh, I see. He was trying to show you something. The magnetic field is a bit off. I can correct that. He was also suggesting that someone was interfering with the natural cycle of the galaxy. Yeah, that happened some time ago. Yeah, I see the anomaly now. That can also be corrected.
I hope you're not implying we're preparing for a pole shift.
Everything must change, but gently, of course. If anyone is convincing you that something needs to happen abruptly and in a way that sacrifices many lives, then they are a warrior faction, not for humanity. I can't allow such acts of violence to be overlooked. Sometimes they will wield their will and force upon the masses, and then I will address it with them with great responsibility and action. The time of grace is over. I will no longer turn the other way for practices that lead to power-hungry individuals at the expense of the innocent. Free will abounds, sovereignty abounds. Anything beyond that will be questioned. This is the time that I enjoy the most. It is the time of change. Let them scurry to and fro, hiding in the dark recesses of reality. We can clearly see them. We can change what is happening and turn it around, and then they will be in the vulnerable point. I can do this with a mere wave of my hand, but don't exercise this, because I want many to learn. Some of the information is not accurate. It's okay. The truth always is revealed, and the illusions will all be gone. Truth always prevails. Be at peace. Don't worry, and see that you follow through with all of your work. It is for everyone to benefit and feel the abundance of being alive, having love, having peace, having harmony. Don't settle for anything less. It is your birthright.
So he was telling me that there was a point when I was looking at Andronicus, and it looks like, when you're in a place like a place observing science, and you're looking at the planetary alignment. Now the alignment of the planets were off, and
yeah. What do you mean by off? Were they like up, Bob? Were they supposed to be all in a straight line, and one was like out of line or something?
Right, it wasn't anything like that. They were just kind of all brought together in a circle. Mm-hmm. And unless I didn't know what I was looking at, and possibly maybe this was beyond the sun and showing me a formation of planets in a circle. I don't know, but
probably a display of some kind.
Yeah, and it almost looked like, when they have like a marionette would have, the cross piece of wood on top, and then the strings connecting all the different planets.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really that obvious. It was more of the strings and less of, you couldn't see the hands above it or anything like that.
Okay, so low budget. We call that an astrolabe. Is a lovely beauty. You've seen these old beautiful mechanical devices that have the sun and all the Earth and Venus and all that, and have all the orbits, and you crank the little handle and it goes round, and so that's they call it an astrolabe, and it's very complex. But it sounds like what you're talking about is almost like a low budget representation of it. Take a few painted beach balls and some string.
Yeah. But it was, it was sort of surreal looking too. It wasn't like, something that you see in a classroom. The lighting and everything was very strange. Mm-hmm. And so my impression is it possible that this is a perspective of how they're able to look at all the planets and how they're aligned? So he kind of gave me a glimpse into his perspective, and he's observing it and conveying it to me, and then Rhodan is looking at me and then seeing what he's seeing, and so then he's kind of just sorting through how the planets are aligned. And then my first thing that popped up was, and unfortunately when you see these things, there's an apprehension and fear. So does that mean, when he made that comment, does that mean that we're looking at the pole shift coming up? And I don't know what brought that up, but I felt it at that moment. And, that's when he was trying to just ease my mind, just like try not to worry about it. We're not just going to tip things the way it's supposed to go. Everything's gradual. And he said that anyone that tells you that it's supposed to happen very severely, they're coming from a faction. They're not coming from, they're coming from a reality where they're trying to induce something or create something, even if they think that their intentions are good, it's not the right way to manage it. And that we're not supposed to embrace that. So it always brings me back to the highest potential for humanity. And I have this symbol that I received from Andronicus, and I really want to do something with this symbol as a reminder to people. And I'm at the point where every time I look at it, I feel like I want to almost tattoo it on my body, just as a reminder that to embrace and hold on to this highest potential for humanity, or that those timelines, allow all the timelines to go to the one where we thrive and do well, and reconnect and become one in that timeline, rather than going to another timeline and then hoping the good one kind of has aspects of it that filters through. So I'm holding on to the strong timeline, the one that Andronicus was holding on to, and that's what I encourage all of you to do the same. And so that we don't have to go through these terrible incidences, wars, famines, struggles, replicators, have a necessity where, our food is all tainted and any type of nuclear issues, and just get rid of it. I just want to get rid of it all. And I know that sounds very naive to some people, but I don't really care. I'm just not going to manifest in that way, and I'm manifesting only the highest potential. That means good health. That means a future for our children. That means many generations ahead, a shift in the 7th generation, this generation moving forward into the next 7 generations. And instead of seeing the end of things, see the beginning of things. So there are a lot of those that will try to bring the old because that's what they remember, and that's what were taught that they needed to believe. But collectively, I believe we can change that if we stay on the positive track. Anyhow.
So.
I know, I had to get that out.
I know, just these things come. And it's your show, so it's your thing. Shall we?
Saffron said maybe it's time for a song. Well, maybe it's time for a Meetis.
Yeah, it's time for Meetis. So, any semblance of normality should just be let go of because we're just about to enter the parallel universe of Meetis.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, lovely. There's a ball in town today. A lovely time to music and dance amongst the beautiful people of London. The women are tucked in, gathered with ribbons, flocked with gems, and carry scents of sweet spices and salves of mint. The men are dandy and neat, fully dressed and topped with white powder. It is something distinct and memorable to me. I will dance with 12 young women and leave alone as usual. I cannot fall in love with any. I don't belong here, and I can't make commitments I'm not allowed to anymore. I have brought too much sorrow in my dalliances and courting. I'm a traveller. I live alone and have no way of having children. Some of the women have really suffered because of me. I have a way of making them fall in love. I never mean to do that. I really don't. I must stick to my own kind, those who are like-minded and disappear to other adventures as I do. But I really don't fancy another like me. It's too predictable and cunning. I prefer the innocent. They are giving and kind.
I think we all prefer that. A person who has good intentions and is not there to deceive us. We all prefer those who love us truly, and truly love us for who we are and with all our imperfections, habits, and less than lovely attitudes.
You are my friend, you know. My true and long-lasting friend. I am forever grateful that we have come together to meet at this time. I was prepared to do something drastic. I see now that much of my attitude was my own fault. I was forewarned to stay close to my kind and not intermingle too much with humanity. Look at me, my palms are sweating. I'm worried about my hair and hoping it doesn't rain. My shoes are clean and I hope that I will be found attractive by many. Silly, isn't it? You know, the Fae do not worry about things like that. As a matter of fact, if your hair is dishevelled and your face has a bit of dirt on it, your clothing can be completely tattered and mismatched, and you will be loved and embraced. That's how I know you. You don't follow the guidelines of trying to be perfect. You allow yourself to just be. I know you groom, but you are clearly not overtaken by it all. Maybe in time, humans will begin to see each other for who they are, instead of the superficial and artificial way of being. No one's perfect. I've seen the most deceptive appearance, as you can imagine. All humans look bad one time or another. It's normal. They spend so much of their time with their outer appearance without realizing they need to do some work on the inside.
Well, you look very nice, Meetis. Are you going to dance?
Yes, and I will have a wonderful time making each woman fall in love with me and disappear.
Of course you will.
I need a little more time, you understand. Your world is not ready for me.
Our world will never be ready for you, but they will adore you anyhow.
Very well. Primus, she always plucks on my heartstrings. 'Tis a burden I must bear. Tick-tock. Time is passing. Come now. Well, here is your song.
Love, love, love. I adore you. There was a man who wore a crown, a pretty palace all around, court of jesters, a poison fester. Then the king falls from the crown. His son comes in to be the next of kin, but loses it all to a warring town. Then comes the jester to stir the next one. The rise and fall is a continuous lair, and the troubles come to keep all rulers awake. You see, my friends, when one wishes to be a power, they can lose it in one single hour. Then another to replace, fall from everlasting grace. It will end and you're always another is there to replace. So choose your life. You don't want to do it twice. So choose your life. You don't want to do it twice. Give what is best to help maintain the rest. In the end is reward if you do what is good. As I told you, won't have to live in folly, as the jester once told. La la la, la la la, la 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 la. I am the jester you have known. La 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 la. Everybody, la la la. Everybody, you know the words. La 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 la.
Yeah.
La la la.
Oh, beautiful. It threw me off with that one. Everyone joined together. Like, oh yeah, that's me.
There you go.
Oh, beautiful.
There you go. Yeah, okay, that was a really nice little one now. I
Yeah,
never know.
yeah.
I have to tell people, anybody who's ever listened, I make these tunes come up on the spot. I have no idea what melody is going to be. I don't know what key it's going to be in. The thing, it's like tapping and love. So I thought love, that's, like a heartbeat. Dum, 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 dum. So that gave me the kind of rhythm. And then, the note of, love is the note of A. So I started off in the A, in the chord of A. And I thought, oh, yeah, let's take a bit of, took a bit of the Hallelujah feeling to it, Leonard Cohen's song Hallelujah, and brought that in. So this is the kind of creative process that happens instantaneously on a Thursday.
Right. Yeah, you never see the song in advance, and you never practice it.
I have no idea how
and
the
each
thing
song is
scans.
completely different, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
all, there's no verse, it's not divided into verses, it's all one long thing. So I don't know whether there's whether there's whether it's a verse, chorus, or anything. So I just have to completely wing it on the wing of a prayer. So,
Well, I want to just tell you a little story.
Tell me a story.
And I've had this happen before. People have called me for sessions, and
people call me all sorts of things.
I did a session for Cheryl, and apparently, as I'm looking, and she said, "Well, what's my connection to the Andronicus transmissions?" And I saw her dressed up as she was working for this wealthy person, and I said, "Oh, you're kind of wearing this dress," and she goes, "Oh, so I was a tart." And I said, "Well, I guess you said it, I didn't, but it's possible." And then I saw her sneak outside, and someone was waiting for her outside, and it was Meetis.
Ah, backdoor man.
Backdoor man. She was giving him food, and she gave him a kiss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So then I saw that this went on for about 5 years.
The men don't
And,
know what the little girls are going.
Yeah. And it went on for about 5 years, and then I said, well, Meetis had to exit, and he didn't want you to be hurt. And then I looked to see who it was next, and you're not going to believe it. It was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh. And
so she knew both. K-Girls the trollop. I was just like, well, and I said, well, why Leonardo DiCaprio? And he said, well, he needed someone that was equally as charming, but that he could leave her and not hurt her too much. So.
Oh, I see. So he's finding suitable substitutes.
Yes.
Very good.
And so
at least that's a little bit more responsible of him than just, leaving a wake of broken females.
So apparently, Cheryl, or she goes under Ches, told me that she had posters of Leonardo all over her room growing up.
Really?
I mean, just, yeah, so she had this little thing, for him, from the movie Titanic. And I said, well, isn't that interesting? Well, I guess you knew him.
Well.
Yeah. Was that from that song? No, that's not.
No, it's not that one. That's what's the Titanic one? It's like one of those. It's one of those songs, isn't it? Oh, it's
what's the word snog? What's snog?
Oh, right, okay. So we've discussed snogging. I've mentioned shagging, right?
Yes.
It's really good to have these words that you can use that are not very, globally popular and don't set off any FCC rules or anything like that. But shagging is making love, having, doing the thing. And snogging is that pleasurable, deep kissing thing that, normally the snog is associated with this kind of sound. Oh, yeah. That's snogging.
She definitely was snogging.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out, because Meetis was not dressed appropriate to the time when he showed up to see her. And had was wearing a long dark brown jacket, brown pants, almost looked like he came from the 1800s, whereas I believe she was in a medieval manor, maybe. She was in some wealthy person's house, and it was a southern part of England. I forget the name, because the information comes through and then it's gone.
All right. Because I'd remember the names. I'd be able to place the names, yeah.
Yeah, there's these, Andronicus, like I've done sessions with people where, I could see the connection with Rhodan, and then Rhodan will come through and give a message of, how they were connected. And, some of you that have been listening for a while, if you are curious about your connection, you can call me, on my website at www.readingsbyariel.com. But, and also, if you want to connect with us, we're going to be doing that Facebook group. It's going to be a private group, but if you want to be a part of it, you're welcomed in. And of course, there's people that are harmonious and that have fun with this whole topic. And it doesn't have to be all about Andronicus. It's more of working and discussing different things that are helpful to others. We've talked about heirloom seeds and how it's necessary that we prepare for that, and planting and just other different types of tips that we can share with one another. So we'll make it a friendly site. It'll be light and also be a point of communication. And then we were also talking about doing Zoom groups so we can discuss, people can ask questions. And also at some point, of course, we'll have an open mic, if people want to call in and ask questions about Andronicus, remembering that there's over 72 hour shows on YouTube for the Andronicus transmissions. Some of the stories I don't even remember, unless it's brought up and then I have to think about it. But, it's just a lot of information that's come through. So anyhow, I thought we might play that song, and then we're going to bring in Ricky Samartana and then go from there.
Okay.
I have the Sounds of Silence that I sent to you.
Okie doke. Now, how do let me just, I downloaded it. Let me just see, is it in the download? Yes, there it is. Open containing folder. Very, very, very slow. And so, yeah, so that's quite interesting. And the other thing is that, this is one show that, Jessica does several shows a week. I do several shows a week. It can all be a bit of a blur sometimes, to be honest. So
yeah, even like people ask me about when I do a reading for someone, the information comes through and then it's very often I forget. So, not all, maybe I'll remember bits and pieces of it, but not all the detail, because I deal with a lot of different people, not just, one or two, and I don't have a photographic memory. I wish I had, but that's not one of my gifts. So I will just, reveal to people. People will ask me, "Oh, do you remember when you told me this last year?" And I'm like, let me say, there might ring a little bit of a memory, but a little bit of a truth, but then I won't know all the details. So I wait and let them explain it. So this is for you. The information is usually intended for the person hearing it, not for me. I don't have to be the encyclopedia of all the data that comes through all the time. So, but at least it is there. It is there, it can be revived. Sometimes I tell people twice. I forget, and I'll give you a message. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I was just lining up the tune. So,
okay.
Got it ready now. So,
I thought that was the Elvis moment that Paul was talking about.
Well, there you go. We're all gods and goddesses.
Okay.
We've got fans. So, anyway, here's The Sound of Silence by Disturbed. Yeah, but they faded out. It's just, there's nothing there. So anyway, there we go. Welcome back.
We are back, and I just want to mention to people if they're looking for Viking today, I don't think he was a little bit under the weather. We miss him very much, and hope sending prayers and hope you feel better. A lot of people are not feeling well. This is the time of year where people pick up little viruses and so forth. So anyhow, I want to introduce my guest from Massachusetts. His name is Ricky Samartana, and he's a wonderful dear friend. I met him a few years back. I remember maybe it was 5 years or so. I started doing a sweat lodge, and Ricky comes from I believe Wampanoag, but I'll let him explain his background and also whatever's on your mind. So hello, Ricky. How are you?
Hello, Jessica. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. You know, I always see you as you're a wonderful soul, and yeah, we've known each other for a little while and did quite a few sweat lodges together, didn't we?
Yes, we have. We have done quite a few. Unfortunately, the New Year's Eve lodge canceled due to the abundance of snow out in Rutland, Mass.
Yeah.
So they're going to reschedule it in March. I'm hoping to make that March show.
Very nice. So tell me, so you, I wasn't sure if you actually grew up on the reservation or you grew up near the reservation, but you told me about some really beautiful experiences. Your background's Wampanoag, is that correct?
Yes. My mother and father are both Native American, but my father was born on the reservation in 1919, and he lived at one time in Windsor, Ontario. And the way he got off the reservation is he stole one of his father's cows and went to Detroit. They sent the older brother after him to bring him back. And when he got to Detroit and saw the bright lights, neither one of them went back to the reservation. So he put my father through music school. My father was a musician who played with people like Count Basie and Duke Ellington. And he'd come home with his paycheck, and my mother explained to me when they first got married, they had enough money for a house and 2 cars. That was a lot of money way back then. But the musicians would say to my father, why go home when you can hang with us and drink some liquor? And that's what my father started doing. And he would drink and sell my mother's baby grand piano and no food in the house and all the things that happen to people who have a substance abuse problem.
Right.
We have been able to spend a lot of time with the family elders now. People that I did not hang with or see when I was younger, slowly I found those relatives as other family members have passed away. And I'm a tribal member of the Pocasset Wampanoag out of Fall River, Massachusetts. They've taken the name back that the tribe was originally known by, and that was Pokanoket. During King Philip's War, if they said they were Wampanoag, they would be killed. So they've taken the name back. The Pokanoket Nation is what they would like to be known as. Most people would know it as Wampanoag.
Right.
And my tribe is located on the South Watuppa Reservoir in Fall River. A big body of water, South Watuppa Reservoir, and the reservation is located on Indian Town Road in Fall River. And there's a large monument there at the reservation in honor of Daniel Page, who fought alongside the colonists during the Revolutionary War. They enlisted us to fight against other Native Americans. And that's how my tribe got their own land deeded to them. It's about a mile or so of land in Fall River.
So, you have met many people from different tribes and backgrounds, just probably from, I know that you do powwows and other types of drumming and so that I went out to Sundance out with the Lakotas.
Yes.
And with Tim Swallow and David Swallow. What's going on right now in Standing Rock, I just wanted to allow you to have a voice and say what your feelings are about what's going on and how it's, perpetually going on. Whatever you feel, I just want you to be able to express.
Yes. Well, first, what everybody has to understand that we can't live without fresh, clean water. There's no possible way you can do that. And what's going on out there for the purpose of making money is terrible. And there are a lot of atrocities that have happened to the people who are out there. That's why the tribe fight against big oil and what's going on there. And I have a lot of friends who have gone there. I have friends of mine who've been there for at least 5 months, if not more. But I have other friends that have said, if you're not used to hard times, don't go out there, because they're not giving the Native Americans in town gas for the cars. They're not serving them in the stores. They're not doing things to help them on a daily basis. Restroom facilities, things like that. They're denying them access to the things that we have fought for through wars to attain. And there are a lot of veterans who are out there fighting alongside the natives as Standing Rock for justice, for equality. So there are things that are happening out there that are just not, you can't abuse the sacred sites. You've pulled people out of sweat lodges. You've destroyed their sacred pipes. You've done things like that you've desecrated the grave sites. If you did that to a grave site here in Massachusetts, you'd be brought up on charges, but this has all been ignored, and this is terrible.
It is, and the burial grounds are sacred, and usually people have problems when they do that too. It's the energy's just really bad. This is land that's owned by the native people. It's their land, and then they're being treated as if it's not. Is that correct?
Well, some of the areas do encompass the native lands. Yes, they've dug through the native land and put the pipeline through several areas that are native land. And unfortunately, you cannot destroy sacred things regardless of where these items come from without being dealt with in a spiritual way. Some people don't think about that. They just laugh and chuckle because they've been able to abuse the people. But you cannot do these things without having to deal in a spiritual way. The things that may happen to you, the karmic things that may happen to you. They may not believe in this, but it's inevitable that things will happen in a not so nice way to some of these people who have done harm to sacred areas, sacred sites, the people.
Right. It's really hard to watch. I know I try to share the information on Facebook and wherever I see it, but sometimes it's just shocking, that the way that...
It's terrible. I am a Vietnam veteran. I can't go out there. The reason why I can't go out there is because I could not let someone do physical harm to me without me retaliating, and I would no longer be in this world. I would not be able to go out there because of my inner anger for being harmed or having someone try to harm others. So I would not be able to go out there. There are other people who are out there who have been abused, but they're still in jail. If you notice when they were supposed to have the trials have been delayed. They're probably going to be delayed until after the new president takes office.
Mm-hmm.
And then unfortunately, because of the money that is involved with the oil, the cases may not be dealt with in a favorable manner for the Native Americans.
Right. I mean, we know the whole issue of Leonard Pelletier. I mean, he's still in prison. Is he still in prison? I mean, it's been years.
He's still in prison. Yes.
What was the story behind that? That was another incident on at Ogallala, or was it incident on Pine Ridge?
I think it was on Pine Ridge. I don't feel he will ever get out of prison. I think he will die in prison.
Yeah. Which is my concern for these other people, that something has to be done because they're just protecting the water. They're just trying to do the right thing, and I guess the more that people talk about it, more that they're aware of it, that the law should be standard across the nation and should not have a pass, to be able to do whatever you can to the Sioux Nation or any of the nations.
Or any nation. But just think of the water issues in Michigan and how that's been kind of swept aside. They knew there were problems, but it was kind of swept aside. So now you've got people who have been sick for quite some time with this terrible water. But it's even worse if you're going to have the continued pipeline encroaching on water. Water is life. We need water for everything, not just for the spiritual cleansing, but for the bathing, for everything that we need to clean ourselves and our surroundings. We need water even for the blessings. We need it for everything.
Yeah, for the blessings as well. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's a hard thing to deal with. It's a hard thing to look at, and I know that you said you're a Vietnam vet. You also were a boxer too. Weren't you?
Yes, I fought for Angelo Dundee, who managed Ali and Ray Leonard. I was ranked number 12 in the United States after the Vietnam War. I would have probably done better as a fighter if I hadn't have been burned out when I returned and tried to get back in shape. But the blessing was I was able to get back in shape and continue boxing, and lived in South Florida for 10 years. I lived for 9 months out of the year with former heavyweight champion of the world, Jimmy Ellis, who was managed by Angelo Dundee. And when I returned from the Vietnam War, the first person I saw in the gym was Muhammad Ali. And he complimented me on my skills. But when nobody was around, he and I would talk about the Vietnam War in the dressing room. But as soon as someone would come around, he would stop me and say, "To be continued." And then we'd be working out the next day. And after the workout, he'd look at me. We'd go to the dressing room. we'd sit around and talk about the Vietnam War when nobody was around. And when someone would come around, he would talk to me and say, "I'll see you tomorrow." So it's so disappointing that all my good friends from the fight game are slowly passing away. Even the fellow from the boxing syndicate that I fought for passed away last week. So it's disappointing that a lot of my friends are now passing away. It's difficult to.
Yeah, we're losing a lot of musicians too, and actors and actresses, and yeah. Well, it's that time of change, and some people it's through old age, and some people it's premature. Well, any other something that just very heartfelt of what you think. What do you think is the next steps for the people of Standing Rock? I mean, right now, everything's frozen. It's at a standstill. Maybe not completely, but it's probably really hard for them to do any type of construction and digging. And even though there's been all of these storms, maybe in some way it's sort of a blessing. It gives us a little bit of time while things are quite frozen.
Yes,
when it thaws.
Yes. What people are waiting for right now is the inauguration for our new president.
Mm-hmm.
And once we have the inauguration and a lot of these different things are brought to the attention of the new president, then people are going to be able to see what he is going to do with the issues that are at Standing Rock, whether he is going to support the pipeline construction, complete the pipeline, or whether he's going to oppose it and have it rerouted. Those are going to be some big questions that the president will have to deal with once he takes office.
Yeah, it really. Although it sounded like the corporation was sort of doing whatever they felt like doing, regardless of what the government was saying. Yeah.
They've desecrated the land. They've desecrated the grave sites. They've hired people to inflict bodily harm on the Native Americans and other people out there, and they've treated it as a joke. That's why the news media for quite some time did not cover the Standing Rock issues. The Native Americans and the drones and things that were flying by were finally able to get video of some of the things and some of the atrocities. But otherwise, it the local news. So now that it's finally being covered, people have an idea as to what has been going on, and we'll see what happens after this inauguration. We'll see if the people are going to be cared for and taken care of, and the land cleaned of these negative things that have happened to the Native Americans who are there at Standing Rock.
I think that there is, JP, maybe you can add to this, but generally, even most administrations, they try to get the popular vote. They try to at least appease the people. The squeaky wheel, is usually heard.
Yes.
Maybe that's the influence. It's kind of, it sounds like the topic is dropping off a bit, but it really shouldn't. I mean, this is really a critical point right now, especially where it is kind of quiet and we have less of a presence of people talking about it. Maybe they are on other networks, but it was kind of really hot, and then people get out of the mode of talking about it. And we still have people like Audrey out there, who was a part of the network. Audrey Ewis, he's out there right now at Standing Rock, and there are others that have joined him, and there are others that are still supporting it. So we want to, still be strong. This is something that we don't want to let go of yet, and we can get very easily sidetracked. So, but this is about our water. This is our sustenance. And I know that there's the cabal that people are worried about. They're worried about the money exchange. They're worried about all these other things. But if we don't have clean water, if our water gets contaminated any further, if we lose our rights in certain areas, if the administration thinks that we don't care about these issues, it affects everyone, not just the Native people, and we need to be mindful of that.
Yes, it does. It does. They have to acknowledge this. The proof is the fact that you've got all the tribes who have come together, and you have other people who have come together, because none of us can live without water. I could have $1 million in my pocket and die going across the desert because I don't have any water. So we can't live without water.
I remember I met an Inuit, it was years ago. I used to help support, they called it was the Native Day of Mourning, which was, you've gone to it before, I'm sure, that in Plymouth, where they, during Thanksgiving, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but tribes from all over collect there. And I remember talking to a few of them, and I met this Inuit Native man he was quite old, and he had a PhD, he was very educated. And he stood there and he looked at me and he said, and he held a bottle of water, like a jug of water, and he says, "This is the most valuable resource on the planet." And he said, right now, if you go by gallons, he says, in some places it's more expensive than oil. He said, and it's going to get worse unless something changes. He said that to me about 7 years ago. So.
Yes. I know who you're talking about. My mind just went blank for his name, but I have cousins who are Inuits who live in Greenland, and he knows the family there. I reached out last year in hopes of being able to find them, and I finally got an email address to send to one of the local locations where all the emails come together, but I haven't gotten a response.
Right. Well, maybe at some point that will come together for you. But you know who he's an older gentleman. He usually has like fur hats and jacket. And I remember he had a medicine bag that was.
David Kahn is his name.
David Kahn?
David Kahn, yes.
Yeah, a very, very, very interesting person.
I have his email. When I touch base with you, I have his email. We can probably touch base with him at some point.
I would like that, and maybe he can come and speak to everyone, because I think he saw the problem before. I'm sure a lot have, but in my life, in my experience, he made an impression to me, just as you did, and just as everyone that we encountered, Tim and all what my experience was personally with the Red Road, the path that I went down. And so he made an impression on me, and he really made me stop and think. And I think more people should consider, because it was almost like he was a visionary. He knew this was coming.
Yes, he is a special person. When I have a chance, I'll share with you a few things about him. I know he's in his 80s now.
Yeah, he's quite old.
He wasn't last year, but I do have his email and phone number, and I will at some point touch bases with you, and maybe we'll be able to speak with him.
Okay. Well, we're coming down to the end of the show. We have about a minute left. I just want to say, Ricky, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today. And I appreciate you're a true friend, a good person, and a person that loves the planet and is liked amongst many. So thank you, and maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Oh, I will be happy. I'm very happy to have had the opportunity to speak on your show. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, and thank you very much, JP, for doing such a wonderful job. And also thank you to everyone in the chat room. I love you. Be at peace, live well, pray for the water, and embrace our new realities.
Stand by. We're going to repeat the first 2 hours of Max's show last night. So good. All right, good night, everyone. See you later in Sean's show.
Good night.
We came from the future.